Hello, friends. I wanted to supplement the information that you have in your handouts to give you some more background on the book of Revelation. Michael Dowd writes about this idea that there is day language and night language. Day language is our everyday experience, the literal description of things, whereas night language is the realm of symbols and interpretation and meaning. The book of Revelation is a perfect example of night language. So let me start off with some good news. Like the letters of Paul, Revelation would have been read aloud to the listeners at a community gathering. People would have been hearing it rather than reading it. And the listeners would have heard it all at one time in a single setting. It takes about 2 hours to read aloud. So the good news is that I'm not going to read it all to you right now. But I think it is helpful to understand that the book of Revelation is first descriptive of the specific world and time in which it was written. It is an allegory of the suffering of the Christians that were enduring suffering at the hands of the Roman Empire. You know, it's written in a kind of code so that the authorities would not recognize themselves in its pages. It was intended first and foremost as a rallying cry for the Christians at the time, at the end of the first Christian century, when they were being severely persecuted. But on another level, the book of Revelation is a vivid summary of the spiritual journey, I think, that each of us come into our human form to accomplish. It's a journey to realize who we are as spiritual beings, and then to bring that forth into full expression. It is a culmination of the great epic journey that began on the first pages of Genesis. So metaphysically, it represents that inner turmoil that each of us can experience as we seek to replace old fear-based attitudes with new Christ-centered thoughts and beliefs. And with our growth and evolution, we must always be asking ourselves, what more wants to be revealed here? So the material in this book is so important that a blessing is promised to anyone who reads it aloud. You know, John talks about the book as prophecy, that it has the weight of the words of the prophets of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures. And for this reason, therefore, a divine blessing is pronounced on those who read and hear the book. The book is addressed to the 7 churches that are in Asia. And we know that there were many more churches than 7 in the region at the time the book was written. But we also know the number 7 represents wholeness and completion. So therefore it was meant to be, the 7 was meant to be representative of the whole church of the world. And the spiritual idea behind the word church is a phase of mind dedicated to worship and reverence. It's a particular aspect of our mental life. So a bit about John. Well, this is not the same John that wrote the Gospel of John. The writer of Revelation tells us that when he introduces his first vision, he tells us that he's on the island of Patmos because he has witnessed the teachings of Jesus Christ. Well, Patmos is used as a place of political banishment for troublemakers that the Roman Empire wanted to get rid of. So right away we know in the first chapter that John is in trouble. He's been banished as a troublemaker. And in chapter 1, verse 10, he writes, I was in the spirit of the Lord's day, and I heard from behind me a loud voice like a trumpet saying, write in a book what you see and send it to the 7 churches, unquote. Well, John seems to be saying that he was in prayer. He was in an exalted state of consciousness, and he was seeking spiritual answers, understanding, or guidance when he was startled by a loud voice like a trumpet. And he said, I heard from behind me. The voice didn't come from the direction in which he was looking. I think often our clearest guidance comes from an unexpected encounter or not in the direction in which we're looking. Then John is instructed to write down what he sees and send it to the 7 churches. That is to apply it to the various divisions of our spiritual life. It's sort of like the voice is saying, hey, this is important. Take notes. Write it down. And so I think our instruction is the same, that we are to live with a sense of reverence and mindfulness, to move through life as though what we are about to hear at any moment is something of tremendous importance. That we're to be listening not just with our physical ears, but with our soul. What wants to be born in me today? And then the passage is, let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Michael Beckwith refers to this kind of listening as reverential alertness. Stay alert, pay attention, know that your guidance may not be just for you, that it may be a message that needs to be shared with the world. When we get a loud message, when something is coming through loud and clear, we need to pay attention and then learn to give forth what has been revealed to us. And so John is obedient. He writes 7 letters to 7 churches, which we know represents all the churches, the whole of our consciousness. And in closing, the book of Revelation belongs to a type of writing known as apocalyptic literature. The word apocalyptic basically means uncovered, unveiled, revealing. So its purpose is to reveal hidden truths. Often the writings were given to give encouragement and hope to people during times of despair and persecution. But it was written in a symbolic or night language so that only the intended audience would understand. And so I would like to encourage you as we move through some of these passages of the book of Revelation to really lean into the passages with all your interpretive skills and with your listening ear to see what wants to be revealed to you. I think that we are like John in that there is a message here for us of tremendous importance. And then in the end, finally, the end message is that we will overcome all that is presented to us. Life will not always be easy. There will be trials and tribulations, but when we seek to know God, we will be able to handle the challenges of life, to walk through our trials and tribulations. The way of the book of Revelation is to follow the Lamb. And the Lamb of God represents non-resistance, represents a willingness to follow our guidance, to open our hearts, a willingness to sacrifice our human will and ego to a greater power that leads to freedom and understanding. And so, may a great blessing be revealed to you through the book of Revelation.